Hi everybody, it's time for this week's critique. Sorry I didn't get to it last night. It was, kind of a crazy day yesterday, getting ready for the hurricane, and I'm sure it's coming your way soon. Not sure actually about that. Haven't watched the latest weather, but it seems to be headed, the East Coast. Okay, so let's take a look at our photos for this week. Had a lot of information to review for this week, and seems like everybody did pretty well with it and enjoyed it. We're starting with Angela. Hey Angela, this baby girl of yours, oh my gosh, she's so sweet. I want to know her. And what a gorgeous photo you've taken of her. And yes, with the ProCam 8, you're limited in your aperture functions. So, you could use different modes. So portrait mode would equal a larger aperture, so greater depth of field. Landscape mode would equal a smaller depth of field and greater clarity throughout. So we do have those modes. And they do change your aperture. Okay, yeah, still got everything that you needed. And all right, so let's go ahead and look at your folder so we can see the full image in its glory. Okay, oh dear, hold on. Okay, so not sure what's going on there. Let me oh, here we go. Okay, there. Gosh, there we go. Oh, I was getting so irritated with my video capture software. So this is the photograph in question, and it's just gorgeous. He's so artsy, and this is so colorful. It's adorable. Love this portrait. And then I was looking at this one, which was to be your RAW file, and I thought, okay, well, I've got to check this out, because if you see when I hover over it, it says it's got a JPEG extension. So I thought, okay, so how are those iPhone RAW photos through ProCam going to appear? And yes, they do appear as JPEGs. So what I would like you to do to kind of prove that it's a RAW file and not just a JPEG is you can do a screen capture on your phone and then send that to your computer. So I'll show you the example that I created. Right here. So I just took a picture of my chair, and it tells me, the type of camera. See this .heic file? That means it's a raw iPhone file. And then it shows me all the settings and everything. And how I did that was I clicked on the picture that I took with using the raw settings in ProCam, and then I clicked on information, and it gave me all of this. So if you could just do a screen cap of that for me, then I can give you credit for the raw file, and then we don't have to worry about any other settings. Okay, fantastic. And sorry about not noticing that sooner. Okay, so I believe this one was your light meter reading. We need to go back to your notes for that one. Okay, so your light meter reading, you had a very shallow depth of field with that small aperture. I'm sorry, that large aperture. Like I said, dealing with a virus. But a really easy way to think about this, if you watch the videos, is 2.8 if you think about that as a fraction. Okay, so 2 is our root number here, so it's like 1/2. 1/2 of the possible opening that we have for the aperture, you know, the window behind the lens. So that's very large. And then your shutter speed was super fast. And it was a bright day, so we got plenty of light, even at that super fast shutter speed. And then the ISO, I recommend that you set your ISO at 100 and just don't even touch it again. Just keep it there, always set to 100. But, you know, 50 is not bad. It's when we get up into, like, you know, 3,000, 4,000, 8,000 ISO that we get into grainy images with pixelation. So we don't want to start that habit. And plus, it's also harder to calculate your light meter readings with changing the ISO. So that's beautiful. And then this one, you got frozen bubbles with your shutter speed, and Mickey, you know, kind of just captured there. So that is adorable. And yes, it is really hard to take fish tank shots. You know, it's like the lens of your camera is competing with the lens of the fish tank and water, and there's, like, you know, so many things kind of in the way. But you did really well with that one. So I'm happy with it. And then remember what I said about the raw file. If you could just send me a screen cap of that information for that image so that I can give you credit for that. And then it's like Kira gave you some really good feedback there, so that's always wonderful. Okay, let's go to our next person. That would be Kira. Okay, so Kira sharing her camera. She's a Nikon person too. Yeah, beginning to wrap your head around it. That's a good way to put it. But I'm so pleased to hear you say, you know, it's starting to make sense. For your shutter speed photo, yes, kids are action, definitely. Wonderful. Okay, and your T10s. I think that one turned out really good too. And then your free trial with Lightmeter Ultra. Isn't that fun? So random junk, but, you know, lighting was a good exposure. And I just, you know, I can't make myself delete my photos. I know a lot of people are so much, you know, more organized. Oh, and I did want to comment on your viewfinder. So what you can do is look up the diopter on your camera. And so your little viewfinder there has a dial underneath, and that's called the diopter. And if you rotate it left or right while you're looking through it, either with, you know, uncorrected vision or corrected, whatever you prefer, you can set that diopter to work with your sight. So getting your subject in focus, you know, whether with your glasses or without, you know, is so much more comfortable without. You can do that with the diopter. If your lens correction, you know, what your prescription for your glasses is so high, it might not be able to accommodate you, but, you know, you'll still know how to correct the, you know, your camera to work with your vision capabilities. So let me know if you need more information about that. I can look up your manual, and but I'm pretty sure it's going to be about the same as mine. Okay, autofocus. Yeah, I tend to love autofocus, but, you know, manual focus is also fun to get into. But we can do a little bit at a time instead of all at once. All right, so let's go ahead. See any more notes that you had. You got some great feedback from Ellis and Angela, and Jess is so enthusiastic. She's a girl after my own heart. Okay, let's look at your images. And this is Kira. Okay, so here's the tee shot that you were talking about. Wow, what a great example this is of depth of field. So, you know, we've got some really nice details on the can in the front, and then I dare say it could be even more clear, but that's all about autofocus. But then as, you know, progressively, looks like the focus is right here on this little edge. That looks the clearest to me. And then progressively gets more blurred as it goes into the distance. So I always like to think of it as like planes of vision. So it's just like a one little, you know, slice of space that you've captured, you know, so clean and perfect. And then even just slightly, the tiniest bit further back, do you see the difference even in the lettering? So this letter is more clear than, say, this letter, because here is our little sliver of focus. So well done with that one. This image is just glorious. Oh, so cute. And I can tell this little boy, he's like full on action. I bet that that's a waterproof, what is that, a fitness tracker? Anyway, you can tell that he's growing too fast to keep up, you know, so thin, oh, but that happens to kids. Didn't happen to my kids, but anyway, this is a huge keeper, adorable. I would actually, you know, print that one and frame it. It's awesome. So great job on your shutter speed. And then this was your light exposure. So very nicely captured, you know, we can tell that, I mean, I can see details. So this image must have had a large aperture because of the shallow focus. The shutter speed was just right. We got plenty of light. So this is a correct exposure. Very nice. And then this one, oh, wait a minute. So this was, yeah, this is an awesome edit of that image. Awesome. I absolutely love it. There's like zero distractions. We can even see like rainbow colors caught in the light. Wow, exceptional. And so this one must have been your RAW file. And yes, it is. NEF is the extension for a Nikon RAW file. So that's something you can tell right away. And then if I try to open it, like double click on it, it's going to open right up in Camera Raw if you've got Photoshop downloaded. So well done, well done. Got everything, hit all the marks. Good job, Kira. Okay, next we have Ellis. So let's take a look. And I'm always so pleased when I see that you feel strongly, you know, that you're increasing your understanding. I really, really, really try to simplify it. But, you know, it's also good to know how complicated it is so you can feel smart. So your Canon EOS Rebel T3i. So happy that you're learning so much more about it. And you're developing an intuition. Bracketing, yes. It's just, it seems like too much to be doing, but if you watch the video with the British guy about bracketing, he shows you how you can set it right on your camera and just set it and forget it, and you can capture an underexposed, perfectly exposed, and an overexposed in order to get all the things that each one has to offer. You know, detail in the shadows and the highlights, you know, and the full amount of color that's available. Okay, so here we go. We're going to look at your images. Joshua gave you some really nice feedback. And I can tell this is a RAW file because it's got the Canon RAW extension. Okay, let's look at your folder. Oh dear, guess I lost that tab. Working. Okay, and let's see those images. And we've got your titles here. I think I'm going to have to look back and see which one was which. Alright, so 8948 is depth of field. And that's this image. Okay. So for a landscape photo, you've got depth all the way into the distance. And so this is, you know, really smart setting for this type of photo, for a landscape photo. And we'll be getting a lot more into that coming up. And then this one, oh, I know that that's your shutter speed photo. So, yep, 8958. Yes, so you captured this little, I can't even tell if that's a butterfly or a moth, but frozen in time. Lovely shallow depth of field, but your subject is perfectly in focus, clear, bright colors. So wonderful image. And then here we've got, this is the RAW file of your baby. And this has to be a boy, I swear. I don't know if it's because it just looks like a boy, but, you know, I apologize if it isn't. And then this is the one that you wanted to be for, I'm going to guess, a perfect exposure. Yes, 8996 is your perfect exposure. Gorgeous. I mean, look at the detail in the eye. So you definitely captured your cat, his eye in focus, and his face and whiskers and everything, and then everything else in the background beyond, you know, here is blurred out. So what you could have done is done some bracketing and did one that was underexposed, one that was overexposed, and then you can merge them in either Photoshop or Lightroom, and you could have brought back some of the detail in for, you know, in the shadows here, if you would like to do that. So it's a fun thing to try. All right, wonderful work, Alice. Got all those boxes ticked. And next is Madison. Okay, here's Madison, and she went to the beach. Super sunny, which is always, you know, something to deal with. Actually, when you're using manual settings, you might have had to decrease your aperture size because, you know, the big window behind the lens, if it's too wide open, you might just get blown out highlights. So you learned a lot about your camera. It's you know, it's pretty obvious, right? I'm so glad your dad's helping you with the manual settings. Oh, okay. I just had to clear my throat there because I didn't want you have to listen to me coughing. All right, so got your shutter speed, your light meter, and there are your settings. The ISO setting, I'm a little concerned about that because remember I said make sure you set it to 100. so you can get a more true representation of aperture and shutter speed, where ISO is not like compensating for anything. We don't need help from ISO. Not at this point. And then you've got another light meter with the ISO 100. Okay, I noticed you were able to have a larger aperture there, so that helps. And then here's your RAW file from your Canon. And just, you know, sharing. Aw, I'm very sad to hear that you're having some minor health issues, but I swear, aren't we all? It's always something. Okay, let's look at your folder, Madison. And here we have your depth of field. And this is lovely, you know. The fact that I can read the print in your book made me want to read, you know, the poetry. And I feel like I'm at the beach, you know. And we got a little bit of a lens aberration there, but you know, I kind of love those, how it brings in a little bit of rainbow, and so this is very pretty. The only thing I would say is perhaps straighten the horizon line, but then I'm sure maybe it was like a toss-up for you. You thought, hey, the book is, you know, straight, so maybe just leave it at that. I would experiment with both ways. And then here's your RAW file. Oh, and do you see all that detail? So much fun to play with in Camera Raw. I want to kind of open it and see if you got to do any changes. And I see the little lens aberration there again, but I love that. A lot of people hate it and think it's bad. I don't have any problem with it. And then there are all your settings. Okay, so great job with your RAW file. And look, I opened it, so it made a little sidecar. Here's your light meter reading. This one I would say is a really good exposure. So I can see all the details in the shadows. It looks like the perfect lighting situation. The sky's no highlights blown out. However, I probably would have straightened this image just to get that horizon straight. And this is shutter speed. Oh, obviously you used a very fast shutter speed to freeze that motion in action. And then this one's also shutter speed to freeze those, you know, the helicopter. Keep seeing this spot. I'm gonna guess that there's a spot on your lens. Perhaps you might want to check that out. Could have just been a little water droplet. You can actually fix that with the patch tool, or I think I'd probably use a clone stamp in this case. So I think I'm going to take this image and open it up in Photoshop. Hold on a second. Okay, so when I go to open the file in Photoshop, I can already see all of your settings. Good, high resolution. Tells us your model, your lens, the size of your aperture, your shutter speed, focal length, and then your ISO. That one was the one with the high ISO. But I will show you a couple quick things. One is, like I mentioned, fixing that little spot on your lens. So I would use Clone Stamp. And then once you click on Clone Stamp, this shows the size of your lens, or I'm sorry, the size of your brush. And if you do Option Click, you can change if you want a soft edge. Probably soft edge would be smart. You can change the size. And there, I've got it where I want it. So now I'm just going to hit Option Click. So that was Control Click and help me adjust the brush. You can also do that up here. Okay. So now I can Option Click on something nearby and then disappeared. So we can go in really carefully and close on that. Make sure that that spot does not look unnatural. Yeah. Honestly, don't even see it anymore. So I can't even tell to find it again. So you see, it's pretty easy to fix those spots from your camera lens. All right, Madison, so great job this week. You did everything and above and beyond. So now let's look at our next person. Next would be Jess. So hey Jess, so you got your Canon Rebel T 1i EOS 500D. And you got a nice, I call it a workhorse kind of a lens because it's just got such a range of focal lengths. So you can, have a lot of fun with that. Hold on a second, I've got to turn that fan down. I'm freezing. Okay. So, I get why you don't want to submit unedited photos. I'm the same way. But all of us here are learning together, so you're saying that you did a little editing. That's okay. And I love it, how excited you are. Okay, so that is amazing. So with your new lens, you were able to zoom in on your subject that was far away, so it's almost like a telephoto capability. And then talking about your beautiful sunsets. So this one would be your light meter reading. Don't see your settings for that though, but we can look them up together. And here's your shutter speed. But yeah, you could go with your moving subject being either very clear or blurred. So those are two effects of motion. And Lorna really liked your picture of Diego. Sweet. Okay. Let's take a look. So we're going to go to Jess. And here's that depth of field photo you were so excited about. I agree. Wow. How gorgeous is that? The color, the contrast, the detail, the shadows, the light. Amazing. So a definite keeper here. And that Bumblebee was so busy. Was so busy. And you got, froze that action. Yeah, and if we zoom in on this. Maybe not. Some things I can't do in my screen recording. But I can see it's got Exceptional detail. Beautiful, beautiful shot. And then here's your light meter reading. So this was to be a perfect exposure. We're going to come back and take a look at that one again. And then shutter speed. So you definitely got blur. However, I also noticed that your subject in the background, who probably wasn't moving, like your pup, is also blurred. So that makes me think you might want to revisit shutter speed. But first of all, let's take a look. Also, I noticed some interesting colors here. So that makes me feel like you had a little bit of a lens aberration going on there. So we're seeing like, okay, imagine how you see a rainbow through a drop of water when there's light coming through the rain. So that acts as a prism. Your lens can also act as a prism. So sometimes you get these little aberrations of color. And I don't know, I find them interesting and pretty, and of course your dog is super cute. But this image, I want to take a closer look at. Okay, so here we go. So here's the image. I can show you how to find your information from your camera. So that's file info. And we just want your camera data. So with this image, I can tell it's been edited and with what application, but I don't see the original file information. And that's why nothing shows here. So really, this is an edited photo, so we can't tell anything about it. This is all your sidecar information that shows, that this has been opened and edited. So I really can't tell anything unless you share with me the original image. I can tell by zooming in on this that you've got a little bit of an edge glow here. And that just could be the light coming through the leaves, but it also looks a little bit over edited to me. So I'm hoping that you can share with me the original file without editing, so then I can see, so you could do the same thing, file info, and find your settings for your camera data. So you can share that with me, because I need that information to know that, that you got a correct exposure here. But I tend to feel like this has a little bit of a lens aberration as well. So usually when we see some kind of odd colors at the edge, and this is a difficult shot too, because we've got totally underexposed, totally overexposed, so we're missing detail in both areas. So I have to say this is not really a correct exposure, but we're working toward these things. So it's just my point of view. And also I did notice that you're only using a 72 what's that called again? Well, I don't know why it's resolution. Your resolution is really low. So that I can see that here, your image size. So your resolution is really low. If you can set that in your camera to 300 and then forget about that, because that will give us so much more detail. So when we zoom in, we won't see, we'll see more detail. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. And then this one, I would like you honestly just to take another picture for your shutter speed, and make sure that you're only, like, try an auto shot first. See what the camera tells you is a perfect exposure, you know. So look at the shutter speed. Then slow it down. So if it's like 1/500th of a second, you know, you just have to make it slower. Maybe 1/250th of a second, and you'll see some difference. You know, so cutting it in half, the fraction in half, you know, doing that is going to give you just a little bit more control over what you want to blur. And then make sure you're using autofocus so we get something in clear here. Okay, so hope that helps. Okay, hey Joshua, you're next. I'm happy to hear that you're finding out about all those capabilities. And yeah, just, you know, what is it? Image quality that you can set on your camera. And you can also do that on the ProCam app or whatever camera app you've chosen for your phone. And this one will capture both. It takes a little bit more, you know, memory space to do that. But you can also see the difference between what a raw image should look like and what a JPEG, which is just like automatically compressed. And, you know, and it just like increases contrast, saturation a little bit. It does a little things, those little things for you. And that's for people who aren't doing that on their own. But it does, you know, it's information that you need, that you can see. And so you've got both already done. Yeah, manual settings just changes your life. So I love seeing how much you're learning. ISO, like I've mentioned before, I set it at 100 and forget it. Just leave that alone because you really need much more knowledge about shutter speed and aperture right now. Playing around with ISO, adjust those settings. So you're not going to see all the difference because, I mean, those really high ISOs can work for low lighting conditions if you absolutely must use them. But I would rather see what you can do with shutter speed and aperture. And then Bandit didn't want to behave. Okay, so depth of field 4.5 is, you know, pretty low number, pretty large aperture. But if you get into even larger apertures, I think you're going to be excited about that. And 1/2500th of a second, that's super fast. So we're going to have frozen motion. And you've got your light meter settings. Okay, again, ISO, set that at 100 in the future. And there's your RAW file. Isn't that funny? ARW, that's what it did on the Sony to show you it's RAW. And you got some nice feedback about your dog from Jess. Okay, so let's take a look at Joshua. And this is your raw image. Okay, let's see. If we double click on that and open it in Camera Raw.
Everyone in this area will be in our thoughts and prayers as we go through it.
That means you've opened it in Lightroom.
Hopefully we can come back later and we can play against the Chiefs Sunday night. So
such a pretty shot.
in a short period of time, I think it's
I'm getting rainbow wheel here. I hate waiting for that. And that's just Lightroom for you, right? Photoshop does the same thing. Hold on, I don't want to make you wait. So anyhow, I can see your capture settings. I think that's slightly different than what you mentioned, but I can tell it's a raw file capture, what date you took the image, and that it was opened up in Lightroom. So I would try and just attach the original file if possible, so we don't have to get into Lightroom if we don't want to. But still, you know, of course you did perfectly there on getting that raw file. Okay, and then this one, that's your depth of field. Okay, so that's a beautiful shot. Very nice, shallow depth of field. Okay, great. Oh, this is your digital raw negative. Okay, let's look at that. This is very pretty. And you know, actually we're going to get into still lifes very shortly here, coming up in about 2 weeks. And that's a nice still life image. I do notice that the section of clarity is more on the stem than on the pear itself. So it's right about here, that little slice of the photo, or like the plane, is beyond what's closest to us. And it's a little further in the distance. So, nice photo, but I think I would have worked and tried to get my focus on what was closest to us a little more. And then this one is your light meter, and that does look like a perfect exposure to me. Beautiful detail on the eyes. And, you know, I can tell that that was where your focus was, because that is where the most clarity is. So this is a very nice image. That's a keeper. And then this one, you know, capturing Bandit's motion, you know, frozen motion, that with that higher shutter speed. So very successful. Great work, Joshua. Just checking to make sure I'm still recording. Okay, next is Lorna. I'm glad that you're spending some time, you know, getting used to the settings and the app and everything. Yes, iPhone's way more convenient. And you got your shallow depth of field here. Okay, and you got shutter speed, light meter. I'm glad you did an overexposed and underexposed. That's really smart. Okay. And Tatum had good feedback, nice suggestion. All right, let's take a look. Okay, so here's that shallow depth of field. I noticed that the plant in the foreground is really sharp. And then this is our next thing in focus, this part of this plant that's coming into the frame. And then perhaps maybe what you were going for was the flowers, and that's a little bit blurred out, but still, you know, it does definitely demonstrate depth of field, so good job. This one, actually I thought that was your depth of field. Hold on, let me go back. Okay, so, alright, depth of field was the flowers, shutter speed was the bike, light meter, shed. Huh, so you don't mention this image. So now I'm wondering, did I copy the right image? Hold on. Okay, so I got that problem again.